Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Jess from Savant Recruitment. Wanted to pop in and make a new Notion video for all the founders and executives that are looking and paying attention and have been following thus far. I know in the last couple videos, I kept harping on onboarding, and a big sentiment across the board is show us how it's done. So I am going to go over the foolproof guide to onboarding that we have created. It is a tried and tested system. It is proven to work, and I just feel like it would be better in everyone else's hands, and that there's no excuses to just not have an onboarding process. So yeah, we'll get right to it. So here's the foolproof guide to onboarding, guys. Don't overlook this. So executive teams and hiring managers often forget to create those essential connections between departments and candidates before they even start working. Onboarding starts way before the candidate starts their first day. 43% of new hires don't make it to their first 90 days. Okay. This is really problematic, especially when you're working with a recruitment agency. And I know that this isn't thought about all the way through sometimes, but as executives, you are making an investment into the people that you're bringing on. Sometimes that could be a really hefty investment, whether that's another executive that you're bringing on, or an intermediate or a junior. This is someone that you're going to obviously want to stay at the company. Like, you've put a lot of money into it. You've put a lot of money into and time and resources into getting them here. Now, just like a car, you have to get that maintenance in, right? They have to, that's my little funny analogy for kind of how onboarding works. You buy the vehicle, just like, I don't want to compare humans to vehicles, but I'm going to make the analogy here. So basically, you need to maintain your investment, and it's the same sort of approach here. So so 43% of new hires don't make it to their first 90 days. Yeah, I've seen some really bad situations happen with candidates leaving within like their first week of joining a new startup or a new company because they've found something else or whatever the case is. Now, obviously, I'm going to tell you to do some pulse checks and check in with your candidates, but there's a lot more underneath the hood that you need to be considering when it comes to onboarding, and we're going to go over that in this document here. So here's why they're not making it to their first 90 days. You don't have a structured onboarding process. Expectations and goals are unclear, and then the training stops after the initial onboarding. Sometimes what we've found with specific startups is that after the person potentially starts, their first couple of days into the role, their manager completely forgets about them, and there's no check-ins, no nothing. And the candidate is kind of sitting at the desk like, my manager doesn't even talk to me, like what's going on, right? And so this is where I get into, when you're promoting individual contributors, and that was in the last video, when you're promoting individual contributors into managers, they need training as well. And I would not be hiring for a new manager's team until that manager has some sort of training underneath their belt on what to do with a new hire and how to set them up for success. So that tidbit out of the way. The steps that you're going to want to go through as an executive with all your hiring managers across the board, anyone that's responsible for hiring, you must go through this with them, because you can't rely on them to actually like just know and figure it out. I know that in the past I've heard, well, we've moved them into management and they should know how to seek out these resources on their own. And that's something I have heard throughout my career. That is the wrong mentality to have. So I hope that if you're an executive watching this and you have that mentality, you drop it, because now more than ever, managers cannot do this on their own. It's not a sink or swim kind of thing. It's we're going to move them up and invest in them throughout their career here. So That needs to be the mentality, like right across the board. Every single manager that you have, get them training. Okay, so what you're going to want to do with onboarding. So let's say you're a founder, you double check with the hiring manager and you make sure that they're available on the agreed upon start date once the offer is either verbally accepted or signed. Now, everybody needs to be on the same page here. So make sure you're checking in with the candidate. You're talking to them about when they can start. They confirm a date. It has to be a hard confirmation of date. You go back to your calendar. You make sure that hiring manager is available, because the last thing you want to do is have a candidate start and then their manager is literally nowhere to be found on the first day, or they just took a day off and then the candidate's kind of sitting there like, what's going on? I don't know what to do. I don't know who to meet, and I don't know what my job is. So just make sure everything's aligned, get organized. Your step 2. So what you're going to do is you're going to give the IT department, or it could be yourself, all the necessary details about the candidate, such as their full name, their home address, email address, phone number, along with any company assets like a computer, or a laptop or a phone, anything that they're going to need to do their job, whether they're working remotely or on site. All of that needs to be figured out. Basically, like as soon as the offer is signed, you go right to the IT department, and you just start hammering out those details with them. Make sure the IT department secures all the company assets needed to send the candidate, or to send the candidate as soon as possible. Or you can have, if the candidate lives close enough, you can have the candidate show up to the office to pick up what they need to pick up. Step 3. So keep the candidate engaged by scheduling drip touch points, such as sending them articles, books, exercises to the role or company in the weeks leading up to their start date. So they sign the offer, right? And then you have this like 2-week lull. The candidate's not starting. The candidate could potentially, and like this is what hiring managers don't understand, like the candidate could potentially, you may think that the candidate is still completely interested in your role. And this is where everything could potentially fall apart because of the way the market is right now. There have been times where candidates have been approached. Even if they've signed an offer, they will be approached by other recruiters during that lull period before they're supposed to start with you. And they could potentially be entertaining other calls, entertaining other interviews, and entertaining other offers. And so how you can kind of get in front of this to make sure that they're still, keeping interest is these drip touch points. And so what we used to do is we used to work with the hiring managers. So whoever this person was, so if it was an engineer, they'd be working underneath the software, development manager. And any material that the engineering manager could send this candidate, like sometimes it would be podcasts, or it would be articles, or it would be a book, or they would have to do a training course before their actual start date. And to make sure that that manager is at least emailing that candidate like every couple days to ask them or send them some new content. Hey, we want you to get this, or we want you to read this so that you can get caught up. So on your first day, you kind of know what's going on here. That's the ideal thing to do in between that lull period before that candidate starts with you. If you don't do these things, you're going to be at risk. I don't care. I don't care what anyone says about, well, the candidate did sign her offer and they should be interested. And I've seen so many different circumstances and scenarios happen. And yeah, you just invested in this person. So you want to make sure that you're putting in every possible avenue in place so that, they don't end up going somewhere else. Anything can happen, right? So, okay, so 2 touch points each week is the golden number. I'm just going to highlight that there, just for hiring managers, just to make sure. And like, even if you're a founder or CEO, like you may even want to pop in and say, hey, like, are you open for a chat? Or just like pop in, how are you feeling about joining the company? Like I don't think that there's anything a candidate would love more than to actually hear from like the founder, hey, like I'm getting acknowledged by the executive team at this company. So just giving that more like home feel that, hey, they're going to a good place and that they know that they're going to be recognized just adds so much value to your onboarding process. Okay, so step 4, on the candidate's first day, have the hiring manager give them an overview of the company operations and introduce them to other team members and stakeholders. So the first week that your candidate starts, what you're going to do is you're going to have the hiring manager schedule the candidate for each member of the team as like 20-minute one-on-one meetings. So let's say I have X candidate, and let's say candidate's name is John. I say, hey, John, I'm going to book you in with the CFO and the COO this week. I'd like you to spend 20 minutes with them, just talking to them about their time at the company, talk about yourself, your interests, what you're going to be doing here, and then their role, and then ask if there's anything that they need, and they'll ask if there's anything that you need, and just basically start building that rapport. And you can do that with as many people as you want. Obviously, you can't do that with a 500-person company, but if it's a small company, I would say start off with the direct team, and then potentially maybe in the second week go over to the executive team and start booking in those meetings. Whatever your preference is, but those introductions are so key. So in week 2, the hiring manager. So sorry, we're right here on the chart here. Sorry, I'm dragging that. The hiring manager schedules meetings between executive departments and the candidate, 2 per week, or else the candidate can become overwhelmed. You don't want to book in too many meetings, especially if the candidate needs to hit the ground running and has a lot of work on their plate. Those meetings, if they don't have to happen, they shouldn't happen. Well, I know we sometimes we have meetings just to have meetings, and so I hope that for these ones specifically, just keep it to 2 and keep it minimal, and eventually they'll end up meeting who they need to. For step 5, okay, so you want to schedule weekly touch points with the candidate to keep communication open and ensure that they stay on track. So remember, communication is key to keeping your employees engaged and motivated. So for hiring managers specifically, what we wanted to see was that a hiring manager, if they, brought on a resource to their team, like a developer to their team, that hiring manager, on top of whoever the introductions were, like the CFO and the COO in the company, the hiring manager had to at least be having 2 touch points per week with the new candidate. And like that's every single week within the first 90 days. 1 touch point per week for large teams. So if the manager has a very, very large team, then you want to reduce that to 2. Or sorry, if you want to reduce that to 1. Sorry, I'm right here. And then 45 minutes each, just to kind of get a feel about how the candidate is feeling. Talk about the candidate. Talk about how they're feeling about the company, what ideas they could potentially have, and really just take the time to get to know them, especially when they're joining, and if there's any issues. And then that hiring manager can go over like what the candidate's KPIs are, their deliverables, any objectives that they have on their plate, and like any ideas that they can discuss back and forth on how they're going to be able to collaborate so that they can get there, so that your company's hitting your metrics and you guys can hopefully have record profits by the end of the year, because you're able to work cohesively as a team. So if you follow these steps, I do have a magnet that I can send over as well with all the steps listed out here in this Notion document. But if you've liked the content, if you think that this is going to be something that you're implementing in your team, I would love to know. I'd love to hear from you. I am going to put my Calendly information in the description box below. And again, it's Jessica Smith with Savant Recruitment. I will be back next week with another Notion video, another educational video. And I look forward to hearing from you about your talent needs. All right, thanks so much.